Hi, I'm Blake Scarlett with Route 16, and I've got another new feature to show off for you. This one is the ability to create generative actions and cloud flows, and this was published about a month ago. As you can see with this article here, it is in preview, so there is a bit of limitations still, but it's cool to dive into and see what we could potentially do with it. So here's the article on it published December 20th. But let's go ahead and show it off here. So I did have found that if you if you're using the old UI of the cloud flows, this won't work. You got to use the new UI. So once you're in the new UI of Power Automate, when you go to add an action, there's a new option for adding generative actions. So once you do that, you'll get this box that looks like this. You can go create from within here. You can create a generative action, which will pop open a dialog like this. And it might be a little bit hard to see. I can't zoom in on this particular dialog box, but essentially you're giving the Copilot instructions, and like you do with any sort of generative AI, um, and it's going to suggest inputs and outputs and then connectors that it should use in order to get this task done. So this is where some of the limitations kick in. This part right here, I don't know exactly what the limit is, but it seems like it's extremely limited. Like if I add a little bit more words than what I have right here, it complains about the description being too long. Uh, so that's one issue to start off the bat. Uh, the second thing is the connectors it can actually use are very limited right now. Um, so if I come over here and click add to the connectors, we got Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, Teams, notifications, Office 365 users, approvals, and Excel Online. So right off the bat, we can't even use Dataverse, which for me, that's where I'm essentially living in. All my data's in Dataverse. That's a lot of the stuff I want to do. So immediately it kind of really limited what I was trying to do with this. You can even see my demo title here. I was going to try to use this to help create some sample data for me in Dataverse to see if I could do that, but I can't connect to Dataverse. So that's one limitation. You can add three Word doc files here as well for it to pull in like knowledge and stuff on. So there's that. Um, but anyway, so for this use case, we're going to use the Planner, Microsoft Planner. Um, and what I wrote in is tell me which planner tasks I should focus on next. So we use Planner heavily. I have a ton of tasks in there. So asking, you know, for some generative AI answers on like which tasks I should focus on. So once you do that, you click generate suggestions, and it's going to come up with inputs, outputs, and which connectors you should use. For this one, super simple use case. I don't even need inputs, outputs. It's like, hey, just get my tasks and tell me which ones I should focus on. So pretty straightforward. So it adds the planner connector for me. It also could potentially add other stuff like Outlook or Teams or whatnot. You can delete those manually. You can add some manually. Once you add that connector, you have to tell it which action in that connector to use. And that's where some of the inputs come from as well, right? If you're using an action that requires parameters, you're going to need those input values. In my case, list my tasks is just, it's authenticated as me, so it's giving me my tasks. So there's no inputs there. But if I was going to say send an email, like you would need some input values on like, okay, what's like, who's this email going to, etc. But mine's pretty straightforward, so that's all I need. Now what's kind of cool too is this preview tab. So once you have that set up, you can go to preview and click this run. This might take a little bit of time, so I might be pausing the video, but this kind of gives you a preview of what it could potentially look like in your flow. So it's doing a little mini timeline here. So it's starting it, it's running my generative action. It's going to give me some like a play by play essentially of what's going on. And okay, so it says it's telling me the thought process, which is pretty cool. So I will list tasks assigned to the user to understand which tasks they should focus on next. So yep, exactly what I want. It's asking me if it can use the planner action. So I'm clicking yes to use that action. Now it's going to go grab the task. So I think now in this case, it's literally grabbing all my tasks because it's essentially just has ran uh, that connection, the planner action, right, which is grabbing all of my tasks. So it's going to do that first, and then it's going to use the AI model to determine. Oh, and here this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier. So it's saying I need to simplify the action before it can run. Try optimizing the length of the inputs, making instructions more concise. So this is actually interesting because I've ran this a ton of times and it's worked. And as you could tell, my inputs are not uh, like this is pretty concise to me. So that's one of the limitations. We'll try this again and see what happens. All right, I'm back. So I literally just clicked run again, did the same stuff, and this time it worked. So before it grabbed all my tasks and oh, my headset turned off there. So before it grabbed all the tasks and then it blew up, and now it's worked and it's telling me more of the thought process. So it listed the tasks I should focus on next, and it's telling me it's using due dates and priority levels, which makes sense. This will help the user prioritize their work effectively. The tasks have been prioritized based on their due dates priority. Yep. Uh, and it's just kind of repeating the flow output validation is successful. Okay, so this all makes sense to me. Looks good. So then that's where I can add it. Um, now I did have to run this once and see what the output of the generative action looks like. And then from there, I was able to be like, okay, I could take this output and just put it in, use the create HTML table action. So essentially what it looks like, and this expression is probably hard to read, um, but the output is just, it has a task property, which is an array. And so I'm able to um, just pass that array into this create HTML table, and it works pretty good. The only thing is there's a little cleanup there because it doesn't format the titles great. Another interesting thing is that there's no dynamic content for this. So if I uh, let's see, so if I click this lightning bolt here, so there's no dynamic content for run a generative action. So at first I was like, I can't use this at all. It seemed weird. And then what I did was I just tried, because I know I wanted the body of the output. And typically what happens is you put underscores if you have spaces, right? So run a generative action. So this is what I tried, and it was blown up saying it couldn't find what I was looking for. So then I realized like, okay, no underscores, just do spaces. And that worked perfectly fine. So I was able to get the body that of the action of the output, and it had a property called task, which is an array. So I'm passing that into my create HTML table, and then from there, I'm posting a message to myself. So you can imagine I could run this every morning, right? Have this Power Automate run only for me, uses the generative action, says, hey, what should I focus on today? Um, and then it sends a message to me. And so we can run this right now, check it out. Um, and so this is pretty, something simple in this case, like uh, you could be like, well, I could just easily make a Power Automate and do that without using the generative action, right? Um, which is true. The only thing is that the action lists all of my tasks. So the nice thing is just having the AI intelligently figure out which ones I should work on. So it is, relying on the AI, of course, which it seems like we're gonna have to do in the near future. Um, but it is nice to not like otherwise I would have to build that logic in this flow myself, right? And figure out like, okay, sort by due date, figure out the priorities, etc. But the AI is doing all that for me. Um, so I'm going to pause here as well. Okay, so finish running. So as you can see, this run a generative action here. This is what the output looks like. So we have a property called tasks, which is an array. So it's giving us all the tasks here that we should focus on. Um, it took a little bit over a minute. So if I was to run that list my tasks action myself, it'd probably be really quick, like a second or less. So it is adding a whole minute and more onto it by running the AI model. Um, but then we just take that output and have this create an HTML table, and then we take the output of that and post it a message to myself in Teams. So I can head over to Teams here. So I get a message from this workflows bot here on Teams, and here's the table. So not super pretty as is. I'm literally just taking the output, making a table. So the headers could, use a change and priority, could translate better, date formatting, whatnot. But you get the idea. And here's a, simple use case. I do wish I could mess around with Dataverse a bit with it, and I could see a lot more powerful use cases that way. But it's cool to get your hands on it and preview and just think of the possibilities while waiting for the full release of it. So hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks for watching.